Joining me now is Kateryna Pitchford. She is a professor at Central Baptist College in Conway. She's a native of Ukraine. She's been in the U.S. for quite some time. Kateryna, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being a voice for Ukraine these last several weeks.
Thank you, Ruby, for having me here. I really appreciate the invite and opportunity to advocate for my country and share what's happening in my home country, Ukraine.
Before we get started, you got a pin on your shirt there. What does that pin say? I can't see it. So
it says, "I stand with Ukraine."
All right. You grew up in Ukraine. Tell me a little bit about your formative years there, what your parents did, what it was like where you lived, and the city that you lived in. I think there's a lot of people that don't know that history.
I grew up in Dnipro, Ukraine, which used to be Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine. I was born in 1982, so I was born under USSR. I remember going to school 6 days a week, so Saturdays was half a day. My mom went to work on Saturdays too. She worked at the bank. My dad was in charge of the mail train that delivered mail to Siberia. So he would be gone for several weeks at a time. So I remember going to the store with my friends, that kind of like grocery store close to home, and they would sell you certain number of eggs depending on how many people in your party was standing in line. So if me, my mom, and my friends were there, they'll sell you 30 eggs. If you were by yourself standing in line, they'll sell you 10 eggs, something like that. So I remember that, and remember wearing uniform.
Yeah.
At school, all public schools, you had to wear uniform.
How did you get to the United States, and tell people what you do now?
I got married to my first husband, and that's how I came to United States in 2004. Now I'm remarried. I have 3 daughters. The 14-year-old Elizabeth, then I have 12-year-old Sophia, and 9-month-old Macy. And I think Macy is the most well-behaving one out of all so far recently. So I teach. I'm an associate professor of business at Central Baptist College in Conway. I've been there since 2015. I teach management, marketing, international business, business communications, and upper level management and marketing classes, and also oversee internships.
All right. So you are talking with many of your family members and friends back home in Ukraine on a pretty regular basis. Tell me what they are experiencing.
So I have my family and friends in Dnipro. So in Dnipro, it hasn't been as much bombing. I guess in the last 5 days, there's were more bombing than before, but the air sirens go off all the time. I had my cousin, she was, when the war started on the 24th of February, she was sleeping in her apartment, but kind of like in a hallway, farther away from the windows. My other friend would go to the basement of her house, and they heard explosions because of the airport wasn't that far away from them. I have my my cousin's son. He lives in Kiev, and he was spending a lot of time in the basement of his apartment complex, using it as a bomb shelter. So, and I have a picture of it. And when he sent it to me, I asked him why there was a tire. And he said, because you have to put your feet on the tire to make it more comfortable. So it's kind of like made up bed, you know, with an old mattress or the carton boards, and the tire a little farther away from it, that it'd be more comfortable for you to lay there and put your feet on the tire. So, but one of my friends chose to leave Ukraine. The other one is really contemplating. And I guess it makes it really difficult that there is a nuclear plant, Zaporozhye nuclear plant, and it's 70 miles away from Dnipro. So, and it was on fire a week ago, a little longer than that. So, you know, if something happened there, you have to think about the consequences and radiation and everything. So that makes it hard. Air sirens is going off all the time. That makes it very stressful. But my cousin a doctor, and she been working every day since the war started. My other friend works as an accountant, and she hasn't been working, but at the beginning, for first week, she wasn't working. Now she's back to work. So for Dnipro, life is not the same, but it seems like, more people go to work now, it seems like, but my cousin sent me today message, and she said that there is so many cars that you see on the streets of Dnipro that are driving with no windows, and a lot of white flags, white rags tied up to the car everywhere, and it's saying sometimes on the car children. So when those cars came from Kharkiv, from the north, or from Donetsk, from the east. So she said that it's kind of like a norm now at the streets of Dnipro to see those cars, and that they came from the war zone.
You were in Camden this past week with Governor Asa Hutchinson, who held a rally with some of the defense industry workers that are making some of the weapons that are used by Ukraine to defend against the Russian assault there. Tell me what your message was to those people and kind of what you thought that day when you were down there.
I guess thinking about it, the world is much smaller than we think it is. And, coming from Ukraine, here I am in Conway, Arkansas, and here's Camden, 2.5 hours away from Conway, and they make defensive weapons that Ukraine can use to save life of Ukrainian people. So when I was in Camden, it just was a privilege to, address the audience who manufacture those Sting missiles, or, all different kinds of defensive weapons. And they probably don't think every day that it's saving somebody's life. And unfortunately, in the 21st century, it is a reality that what they do every day is actually saving somebody's life, because it's war in the middle of Europe now taking place. So I was just thanking them and sharing with them stories of my friends that now, their regular life had been abrupted by this war that nobody expected. People work very hard to be where they are in their 40s and late 30s, and now you have a reality that you have to leave it all behind or stay at your own risk. And when you have children, this becomes really pressing issue. Do you become a refugee and you leave, and which is very difficult to do in the first place, but then how do you rebuild your life there when you left your land, your culture, your language, your loved ones behind, because men cannot go between the age of 18 and 60, they have to stay in the country and fight. So you have to think about it, how do I start over now? And language barrier, if you in Poland, they have plenty of established life for Polish people. And I value that they opening doors to, over 1 million refugees in Ukraine, but then you have to think what's next, how long am I staying here? And do I have a refugee, assistance? Because I think some countries like Slovakia, they don't offer refugees assistance. They may let you in, but I think you have to keep moving somewhere else. But where do you work? How do you live? Do you have enough money that you brought with you that you can spend on rent somewhere? And, a lot of people don't make that much money in Ukraine, so you have a lot of realities then hitting you. You work for something so hard, and now you starting over, or you going back and rebuilding everything. And how do you do that? Where do you get the money? And, and also people lose lives all the time. My heart breaks for Mariupol, for the city on the southeast, that's very, sad story, looking at the women, at the children, at the maternity hospital, and so many unjustified deaths that shouldn't be happening, in the 21st century with the war of such a caliber and such a magnitude, just because, one country does not want to respect the other country's borders and sovereignty.
Yeah. President Zelensky made a speech to the U.S. Congress this week. I'm sure you watched every word that he had to say. Was there anything that kind of resonated with you? Is there a takeaway that you remember from that speech?
I think, that he made it, and you heard that he made it very emotional and appealing to the, to the Congress, because he touched on what United States had to go themselves, during World War II, and that nobody can expect anything like this happening, and that you just need help, from other countries from all over the world to end this situation, because Ukraine, second largest in Europe, but 44th largest country in Ukraine and in the world, does not have enough resources to fight, big army like Russian army, so that Ukraine can use any type of assistance that United States is willing to provide. And I think it was very effective speech, since Congress signed another 800 million value of 800 million military assistance to Ukraine, which is very needed, from flak jackets to the missiles to anything that can help Ukraine fight this war. Of course, I would like to see where sky would be protected, but I understand all the nuances that go with the global politics. But at the same time, in 1994, they signed Budapest Memorandum, where Russia, United States, and Great Britain guaranteed securities to Ukraine if they gave up their third largest nuclear arsenal in the world, which Ukraine did give up, and it went to Russia. And now you see, 2022, and Ukraine getting challenged, their sovereignty by one of the countries that signed that agreement.
Yeah.
And I understand that United States helps, a lot, and but it seems like Ukraine can use all the help that is available. And I appreciate seeing the defense, arms going to Ukraine to help Ukrainian army fight the aggressor.
I know this has been hard on you these last couple of weeks. I know it's been harder on many of your family and friends that are still back in Ukraine. I appreciate you being a spokesperson for your country, and thank you for your time being with us today.
I really appreciate the opportunity to bring awareness of what average people go through, and how 30 years of independence can just be erased like this. But I do believe with all my heart that Ukrainian army will win and will return the Crimea and the eastern territories of Ukraine. And I just hope it will be sooner rather than later, that not many people would lose their lives. I just pray for peace over the Ukraine.
All right. Kateryna Pitchford, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're back with more right after this.